Never before have we been faced with so many choices about how we should think, act, and live. How should we spend our time, our resources, and our money?
Blessed are the pure in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven.
How do we view ourselves and those around us?
Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted.
How can we find true success and lasting happiness?
Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the land.
How can we know what is right and true?
Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God.
How can we make sense of suffering and loss?
Blessed are they who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven.
And those of us who want to continue with Jesus need to choose Him and choose each other in a deeper way.
Welcome to the choices we face.
Hey, welcome back to another week of the choices we face. And I got to be wondering today, what choice does the Lord have for you to make today? And we have some guests that are going to help you identify some of those choices. Peter Herbeck is here with us, our Director of Missions for Renewal Ministries. And our special guest today is Kevin O'Brien. I met Kevin a couple months ago when I was in Worcester, Massachusetts for a Catholic men's conference, and Kevin was involved in organizing it, and I sat near him at dinner and we had a good talk and just found out all the inspiring things that this Catholic layperson is doing that I thought you should hear about. Kevin, welcome.
Thank you, Ralph. Thank you, Peter. Excited to be here. You know, this is my first experience and the opportunity to share my little story. And,
why don't you tell us a little bit about you were born into a Catholic family, and then what happened?
Way back when.
Yeah.
Now, I was born in Detroit, so right down the road here, in an Irish Catholic family. My father's from Ireland, and mother is from Pittsburgh, but her mother and father are both Irish, so 100% Irish, 100% Catholic. And grew up in the 70s, so it was during that time you really didn't get much faith. I mean, or I should say, you didn't get really much learning in like catechesis and stuff. So, but I always had a sense as a child. I mean, we would go to church every week with the parents and stuff, but there wasn't a lot of extra stuff, a little extra, like the rosaries. There was no rosaries or learnings at home. But as a child, I always had a sense of faith and belief in God. And I remember when I was a young child, and this is, probably 7, 8, 9 years old, going into, and I was in elementary school, and I went into the bathroom. They had bathrooms in the classrooms. And I remember making the sign of the cross on the mirror and blowing on it. And then of course, the cross appeared, and I said a prayer. I was having trouble that day. Wow. Yeah, it's like, as I reflect back now on my younger years, that's something that pops up. And then I grew up in the family, and again, we would go to church every week and do our thing, right? But when I went to catechism, I think we were doing drawings and, nothing really solid. Didn't really learn the Hail Mary and why Mary was great and stuff. So went through elementary, through high school. Again, still had a sense of God, though. I remember kneeling down as a young boy, and before I went to bed to say my prayers, just by myself. I kind of instinctively did that. Mm-hmm. And then went to college. Right down the road here in Ohio, and played college football.
You can name the college. It's
Bowling
okay.
Green State University. Any Bowling Green fans out there? And again, still had a sense of faith, but not really understanding what we as Catholics believe. So why is it important to be Catholic, or why should I go to Mass? But still had a sense of it. So I would say prayers. We as a football team would pray the Our Father before games.
You played football then for Bowling Green?
Played football for Bowling Green, an outside linebacker. And it was a wonderful experience at that time, and from a sports perspective. And we, my junior and senior year, we had 2 championship teams. Basically, my freshman and sophomore year, we really didn't have much, but in regards to a winning team. And then new coaches came on board, and it was amazing what they were able to do. They
say Bowling Green is the breeding ground of great coaches.
Yeah, the MAC, yeah. We've had a number of great coaches that come out of there, and some great athletes. They've got a good team this year as well, so it's fun to go back and watch your alma mater. So I went through college, and again, praying and slightly, going to church every so often. Mm-hmm. And then, God blessed me. He gave me the opportunity to play professional football. And so I transitioned from college into the professional level. And again, he's still working, you know, working inside and trying to talk to me, but I was kind of pushing away. And went to the Buffalo Bills. So I got picked up by the Buffalo Bills. This is back in 1993. And they, you know, did okay. It was second team. You know, I was like, you know, feeling pretty good about myself. I was backing up Darryl Talley at the time, who was an All-Pro, and I was like, oh, this is great. You know, I'm, you know,
You've arrived.
I've arrived,
Yeah,
right? I've
yeah,
arrived.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm a pro football player.
Yeah.
And I remember, though, as I reflect back, I remember we were playing the Minnesota Vikings in an American Bowl over in Germany, in Berlin. And the stadium is full of people, probably 70, 85,000 people. And I remember looking up at the stands, and I was like, this is it. You know, I don't know. I didn't feel. I almost felt empty. It's the toughest thing to explain, but it was just like I'm surrounded by all these people, and I felt so alone. You know.
Yeah.
And so, I was like, do I really even care about football now? So now I've arrived.
Yeah.
Right? I'm playing professional football. I'm standing there watching the game go on, surrounded by all these people, and I'm looking up at all, and I'm saying, this is it. This is all that's there. So, and from that, I guess, you know, I just didn't have the passion that I believe I would have had if I had really Christ in my life at that time. So from that, I ended up getting released. So that means, you know, like let go.
Sure.
They fired me. And then as I was leaving, I took some time off, and I started to pray a little bit more. And from there, I actually then went into the Canadian Football League, and the Sacramento had a team out there at that time. So I did my thing. I actually joined a Bible study group out there with some evangelicals. And which were very, like, on the sports side, you would see that a lot of Bible study stuff with
Guys from your team?
from guys from the team. So
Yeah,
again, so God was working again, and trying to touch me through others. So one day, I'm going out to practice, and I'm flipping through the stations, and I see this non-denominational preacher preaching, and he's got passion, you know, he's just preaching the word, and I'm like, wow. And I was just like, I was amazed by that. I was intrigued by the passion of this individual. Sure. And so I sat back and I watched him. I said, oh, okay, I'm going to get some of his tapes, because this is pretty good stuff, you know. So I got the tapes and started listening to him. So again, I think God is working more, and I started praying. But the Catholic, now I started questioning, well, should I be Catholic? What's the big deal? And during that time, my girlfriend, now wife Leslie, and I were talking. You know, we're talking more about. We talked a little bit about marriage, and that was something I wanted to push off. But I asked. I said,
A choice you weren't.
ready to make. Yeah, right. Ready to take that big plunge.
Yeah.
So I remember asking her. I said, "Would you marry me if I wasn't Catholic?" And she said, no. I said, what? I said, why not? How could you say that, you know? So, and again, and then my brother at that time was discerning a vocation.
To the priesthood.
To the priesthood.
Yeah. Okay.
And he's really the one that, you know, brought me back. You know, so I'm talking to her and asking her questions. So that's what God's like, stirring something up to ask me these questions. So I started talking with my brother, because I told him, I said, well, I have a conflict with what the church teaches. And he would say, well, what's your conflict? What's wrong? I said, well, I don't agree with this, and that. And, you know, he would try to explain it to me, and then I'd say, I don't agree with it. And then we would have heated, you know, the Irish temper would start flaring debates. Yeah. And one time I remember this. I remember arguing about abortion. I said, well, I don't agree with it. However, I don't agree that you have that right to take away from somebody. So he's now giving me all the reasons why. Sure. And at the end of the conversation, because again it was getting heated, and my mom was like, well, you guys, break it up. I know. Yeah, right. Stop.
Stop beating on each other.
Right. And he said, you know what? No one has that right to kill somebody else. And for whatever reason, that was like, just sent shockwaves through me. It's like, wow. That's the first argument I ever lost with him. And I go, you're right. So again, kept working and continued playing football, had the opportunity to go over to the NFL Europe. I was drafted into that. again, got involved in evangelical prayer group and reading the Bible and trying to evangelize with guys, and we would talk about God. We'd talk more about God than we would actually live the Word, you know. It's like, yeah, you talk a good game, but can you walk the walk, you know? So we did that, and then I transitioned to the Patriots, which was, again, a great blessing, and I was like, you know, thank you, Lord, thinking about this.
Is that how you got to the New England area?
That's how I started,
Yeah.
and then I really took a liking in New England, and then unfortunately was released. I ended up getting hurt. So now I'm thinking, okay, where am I with my football career? I said, well, Lord, and I'm thinking this now, I'll give it one more shot. So I go around, and I go back into the NFL Europe, and that didn't work out. So then from there, I had the opportunity to join a company that allowed me to get a lot of experience in a short amount of time, and I ended up in Massachusetts. And just outside of Massachusetts in Northborough. And that's really where God took off for me. And my brother, again, is continuing to, hey, you have, you know, this is what we believe, this is the reason why. And as I look back, I'm thinking, I wasn't getting it. You know, I didn't understand it. And he said, you know what you need to do? You need to go to confession. That was it. And if you would say, what was the one point that really helped you out? It was going to confession. And, you know, I'm like, no, I don't need to do it. He's like, listen, Kevin, you need to go to confession. And I said, why? And I did the old why? Please, you need to do that. So he's praying for me. He's saying his rosaries at the seminary and stuff. And then, you know, I end up, okay, I found a place, and no one knows me here, and it's been about 15 years, and I'm driving around the church, and I'm starting to sweat a little bit.
Put on your plastic nose glasses, and you just sneak in and
walk in,
Nicodemus, you come at night. You all right? You want to
go in and run out. So I did that, and it was like the scales came off. I mean, it was like, wow. And that, from there, it was, you know, the Holy Spirit came into my life more. My wife and I, actually it was my girlfriend at the time, we started talking more about it. I became more at peace with our relationship. We were living a chaste life. And you know, we ended up getting married, and we joined a wonderful parish, St. Bernadette in Northborough, a wonderful community. And as an athlete, you know, it's like you want to get in, like I call it getting in the game. Or, you know, bring the heat.
Yeah. Hey, we're just going to stop there before we get into the game.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to take a little break. We're going to take a look at just a little clip that you have when you were playing football.
Oh, wonderful.
Okay.
Great.
Kansas City last year went 10-6, lost in the first round to San Diego 17-0, and that was when Marty Schottenheimer decided we had to make a change when they were shut out. London double pumping, in trouble, trying to scramble out, and down he goes. Getting up is going to be Kevin O'Brien, who has played very well. They like this guy. He's a rookie out of Bowling Green. Third sack of the night for the Bills.
Hey, you know, this is the promising rookie out of Bowling Green that we just saw sack the quarterback for Kansas City. Okay.
Yeah, that was a great segue into, you know, now getting into the game.
Yeah, you just told us about how you really going to confession made such a difference, and it really, like, the blinders came off, and you really got it, and you and Leslie were really living a Catholic relationship, and, you know, and got married, and
that's when we moved out from. I left football, was retired, you know, at the early age of 26 years old. I retired from professional athletics, and ended up out in Massachusetts, St. Bernadette's, and that whole parish community just was so wonderful. And went to confession and joined a faith-sharing group, a Catholic faith-sharing group, because, as I was talking about before, it was more what I'll call Protestant, evangelical, and now transitioning into, okay, what is this Catholic faith all about? So joined a faith-sharing group, and I asked one of the guys after the meeting, I said, you know, I have these tapes on this non-denominational preacher, and he's just passionate for the Word of God and Jesus, and I want to hear, do you know of a Catholic priest that can really, what I'll say, bring the heat, you know? Yeah, and he hands me a tape of one of my favorite preachers, which I'm sure you all know is Father John Carapi. His whole conversion story and where he came from, and being a military background, he played football as well and Golden Gloves boxer. So and he just tells it with such passion and
Yeah.
tells the truth, you know. He doesn't compromise. So I was intrigued by that. I was like, wow, okay. And I started getting more active and started learning more about it and listening to more and more tapes from different speakers and reading more about our faith and what we believed and why we believed what we believed. And so listening to the tapes, and then I said, you know what? As a Catholic man, I need to get into the fight. You know, we talk about sports and
You need to get off the bench.
get off the bench,
Yeah,
right? Get into
yeah,
the game.
yeah.
And it's like, you know, I worked so hard.
Or get out of the bleachers.
Yeah,
It's more
yeah,
like it. You know what I mean? You're watching all the time. You know?
Sitting back, ooh, I can't do that. Or, you know, a lot of times, some of my friends and even myself, I came from that perspective of, you know, like religion is kind of soft, and, you know, Catholicism, it's old. You know, you don't really need that. And then once you get into it, into your faith, your Catholic faith, and the richness that you have, it's so incredible. And then, you know, pulling these resources in from these different areas, it really allowed me to open up my eyes to what we believed as Catholics. And so I started getting active in the parish. And I heard a great series on perpetual adoration in the Eucharist. And really, that's when, again, it's reading more, okay, that really is Jesus in the Eucharist, you know? And really reflecting and praying about that. So I said, God, wouldn't it be incredible to start a perpetual adoration at our parish? And lo and behold, we have our pastor over for dinner one time, and it's like on my heart. And we started talking about it. He goes, you know, Sister Muriel wants to get that going. I said, you gotta be kidding me, wonderful. And everyone's like, there's no way you're gonna get that going. It's 24 hours a day. We were doing 5 days a week, and then we transitioned to 7. No way, we can't get people to come in once a week, you know? And we said, well, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna pray about it. And we're gonna let the Lord decide. We're gonna do this for Him and to honor Him, and that's gonna be our foundation. You know, we'll take care of God, and the graces that flow from that will bless our community. And we started that, and that year, right before we started, we had 6 men go to the Catholic Men's Conference. And that was my first year. This was it 2002? And it was good. I was on fire. I was like, whoa, Catholic men. We had like 1,200 men there praising God. I was like, whoa.
This is the Worcester Conference?
Yeah, it's the Worcester Men's Conference.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is incredible. How do I get involved? And then, okay, so now the adoration begins. And then we had a change, and Monsignor Sullivan came on board at St. Bernadette's, and he was one of the key coordinators of the men's conference, and we became very close. And I remember leaving that conference, and I said, you know, I'd love to get involved in that. And then I just walked away from it. Lo and behold, God brings in one of the founders, one of the guys that's very active. He said, Kevin, we love you to get involved and, you know, take over director of sponsorships. And I said, shoot, I'll do that. And can you handle the regional area? And can you do this? So it's like, you put your hand up and like, oh yeah, can you do this? And it was just amazing. So we started Perpetual Adoration. Right before we started it, we had 6 men. Perpetual Adoration goes, we put a real focus. We had 60 men go out of our parish the next year. And it's like, this is incredible. So started getting more into the men's ministry. Started a men's group and just trying to help men grow in their faith. You know, one of the things that I see as a layman is that most Catholic men, especially in the business world, are just like, you know, that's off limits. Thanks, but you know, I don't really believe it. And I'm like, you know what? I know exactly what you're thinking.
didn't either.
I came from that perspective. So you know, praying about that, praying with them, you know, interceding for them, and so we developed a small group that would pray together. We get together. Try to get together every month, but we get together every week, really, but specifically for the men's group. And we were praying. It's just amazing. We came up with a mission statement, and it was just like, wow. I mean, if I step back now and I reflect on it, to me, it's just amazing. So then my wife and I, we continue to pray. She's joining in a rosary group. We're both involved in adoration. We've got the men's group going. We get involved in pro-life ministry. We start taking over the chair as that. And, you know, you get so excited about these things. You want to, and my passion is just like, you got to, you know, get into the game. You got to get into the fight, and you reflect back on what you did and all the energy that you put into a sport. This is a spiritual battle. We have to do that. If we need to make sacrifice, we'll make sacrifice in other areas, but we won't sacrifice this, and we'll give to God.
You know what's so important in your story is a lot of Catholic men are on the outside. They're in the bleachers and they're looking at it from a distance. I'm not very spiritual. That doesn't feel at home to me. It doesn't look very manly, and all these kinds of things that hold you back.
Right.
And at the same time, they say, I feel bored when I go to church. I don't have much of a relationship with Jesus, or any of this kind of stuff. And so they're just sort of floating out there in no man's land. There's no power and passion of thing. Once you decide to lay it down, to go for Him, it's in the doing, it's in moving toward Him, that all of a sudden He comes alive. You begin to see Him. His power begins to come alive more in you, and you get filled with passion. Right? I mean, that's what He's saying when He said, if you want to follow me, got to lay it all down. Let's go. Come on, I'm ready to go. I'm in the battle. I'm going to Calvary, and I want you to come with me. You know? And when men see that and engage, you can't see it from a passive position as just sitting in the boat. You got to be like Peter. Jesus said, "Come and walk on water, Peter." You know, he goes. He's a fisherman. He knows he can't walk on water, but the Master said, "Come," and he went, and he walked on water. You know, and so that's partly what needs to happen with men, is to be able to hear the call of the Lord and have the guts to stand up and respond to Him, or the humility, or whatever else is needed to be able to make that come alive for them.
And Kevin, I know there's so many other things you become involved in. You really were concerned about how things were going in the state of Massachusetts, and you got involved in some of the political action trying to make things go better. But I also know you've learned some things over the years. Why don't you share some of those things with us? We only have about 5 or 6 minutes left.
Yeah, some of the things that, if you don't mind me pulling out some notes that I wrote down here.
Go ahead, yeah.
You know, as you take a step back, and again, I'm almost like you call it new in the faith. You know, just my recent reconversion back to the Catholic faith and how wonderful it is. And one of the comments that just hit me when you were talking about guts, that is, I think, a big thing with men. I think it's overcoming that fear of, hey, I don't want to be, considered radical and stuff. And, it takes a man to be a Christian. I mean, a real man. When you get into the game and into this battle, it's like, whoa, hold on. And that's something that I've learned, and I pray about that all the time, to be a strong man for my wife and my children, and a father, and then also to try to make a difference, and going back to, I think you've got to ask the question, why are you here? And the Baltimore Catechism says it great, why are you here? To love God, to serve God, to know God. Why? So you can spend eternity with Him in heaven. And, if you start...
Keep your eye on the goal.
Yeah, right. Start with the end in mind. Where do you want to go? Okay, that's where we want to go. How do you get there? And if people reflect on that, specifically men, because I feel called to work with men, it's like, yeah, wow, okay, I can see that. If you can step beyond today and look into the future, you'll be amazed on what you can find. And one of
businessmen have paid Stephen Covey
Right.
a fortune to come and tell him, say, begin with the end in view, right?
Yeah.
And say, well, that's a great idea, but do it for your whole life, not just for the financial goal you're after.
Exactly.
So,
and go beyond that and be whole, and I think that's what the Catholic faith does. So one of the things, you know why you're here, again, to get to heaven, and that's one of the things that we did as a family mission, We sat down, my wife and I, and we talked about it. Well, let's talk about this a little bit. Let's think about it. Let's write it down. So we created a family mission. It's very simple, to get to heaven.
Yeah.
And to bring as many people to heaven as we possibly can with us.
That's it.
Yeah. And it's so simple, and sometimes people just don't understand it.
Yeah.
And John Paul said, life and freedom are God's gift to us. What we become through our use of freedom is our gift to God. I love that. Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah, that's great.
And then something else that we've done, part of the, flows from the mission, is surround yourself with goodness. What you watch, what you listen to, what your kids watch, who your kids' friends are. Be active. We've done a number of things. TV is, I'm almost like anti-television right now, except for EWTN. I love EWTN and out there. And it just, for me, it's like, that's goodness, And, Proverbs say, he who walketh with wise men shall become wise, but a companion of fools shall be destroyed. You think about that. Okay, how do I do that? How do I surround my home? How do I create my home a place of worship, Father John Hardin also said this, and I thought this was very powerful. The foundation of spiritual life is in the mind. What we think we choose, what we choose to do makes us what we are. It all begins in the mind. and again, for me, I reflect and I said, wow, okay. So that goes back to surrounding yourself with truth. Create good habits. Again, this now I tie into football. I read the Summa, I read the little green book, not the big one.
Thomas Aquinas' teaching.
Yeah, and what I extracted from that the first time I went through it was habit, right? And good habits are virtues, and bad habits are vices. And as I continued to reflect on that, and I thought about my football career, we would do the same thing. Like if the tight end stepped down there, we'd step here, and if they stepped outside, we would do that. And it's like we've got to create those good habits so we can do the good, and it becomes easy. Habits become the channel for doing the good.
You know what, Kevin? You have so much good things to show us that we're going to have to continue another program
Yeah, I'd
someday.
love to. I would love to.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for being with us today and for the witness you're giving as a Catholic man. And thank you, Peter. And this is really what Vatican II has been calling for, is for Catholic lay people to wake up and to get involved and become active as
Men on
Catholics.
fire.
Yes,
Yeah.
amen, amen.
Okay.
Amen, brothers.
Well, you know, I knew today when we started the program that maybe there was going to be some opportunities to make some choices. And Kevin's certainly given us some real clarity about thinking about choices. Choose to live your life with the goal in mind. The real goal is heaven, and bring as many people with us, and make decisions in light of that goal. The second thing Kevin mentioned was so important was surround yourself with goodness. Make practical decisions to help virtue grow in you. Hate sin, love virtue. Say no to the things that take you away from your goal. Say yes to the things that bring you to your goal, even if it hurts. You know, the Apostle Paul said, you know, athletes do incredible things to accomplish a passing goal of a crown or a medal that tarnishes or disappears. And, you know, look at the goal that we have and look at the reward that's coming and make the sacrifices necessary to accomplish your goal. I've written a booklet called My 5 Most Important Decisions, and we'd like to offer it to you at no cost, just for the asking. Call the 800 number or write to the address and we'll get it right off to you. Until next week, this is Ralph Martin and Kevin O'Brien and Peter Herbeck wishing you the very best, a life lived in light of our goal, the goal of heaven, and bringing as many people as possible with us. Surround yourself with goodness. Make the choices and decisions you need to make today.
Every day we're faced with decisions both great and small. Some decisions seem small and insignificant, while others can be confusing and overwhelming.
Where should I go to college?
Is this the right job for me?
Should we start a family?
But God has called each one of us into existence for a purpose, a glorious and eternal purpose.
Hi, I've written a booklet called My 5 Most Important Decisions, and I think you'll find these decisions really useful for your own life as well. To receive the free booklet, call Renewal Ministries at 1-800-282-4789, or write to us at the address on your screen, or visit us on the web at renewalministries.net.